Yes?
Publishers, they obviously they help you promote as well, so you can do your self-promotion yourself, but do publishers often give advice on how to promote as well, or is that the sort of logistical thing of the situation regarding promotion?
Well, we do, but what I've actually found is that the artists and the authors themselves do a much better job of promoting a product than we do. If it's just a matter of getting the blurb, the synopsis of the product in front of as many pairs of eyeballs as possible, publishers can do that. They have huge mailing lists. We have websites. We have a bit of budget for advertising, but none of that yields the same kind of return on investment as the personal involvement of the artist, of the creator, and their personal charisma. Look at Kyle Gold. He's, as we were talking earlier about Twitter and stuff, he's very active on there. He's very active on live streaming. He constantly updates his website with free stuff. He makes sure that he engages with his audience. And it's because he's constantly engaged with his audience that has a much bigger effect on his sales than advertisements run by so-called press or mailing lists that they send out. At least that's my perspective. Have you experienced it so far?
Me?
Oh, both of you.
To be honest with you, there was no advertising done for Quilty other than off of my FA page, so I don't know. I've never had an advertisement before. We had a poster up at like my booth and at Fur Planet's booth at AC, which they were nice enough to provide free of cost. But other than that, I really don't know. I'm doing a project with Sofa Wolf this upcoming year, and they said that they do some pretty substantial promotions, and I've seen that they do. So I'm really looking forward to seeing what the process is like, but I've never been involved in it, except for posting like journals, like, bro, I'm doing this right now. You should read it. Yeah, that's pretty much the extent.
Read/blog.
What about you?
No, it's pretty similar. I mean, when I started way back in the day, and things were pretty small, there really wasn't a whole lot of advertising. A lot of it was just like Previews Magazine or a couple of websites, and that was it. But when they have something where it's an ongoing comic and they just have different artists and writers, most of the people that have a subscription, they just don't necessarily have to keep advertising it. But when I did the short story of Sofa Wolf,
which one was that?
Heat 7.
That was last year?
No, 7 is this year.
7 is this year.
7 is this year.
Yeah. All right, no wonder I haven't seen it yet.
They did a lot of advertising themselves, but they also ask a lot of the other people participating in the book, please post either on FA or your journal or wherever you can to help advertise it, because everybody has their own little following. So if you have all these different people that have their own little following, and you just stick them in one book, well, that's a lot of people you can contact and advertise to, especially if each individual advertise to their own little fan group. So it's really helpful sometimes when it's something that's a collaboration.
I actually did have a little bit of a problem with that. I also worked with Sofa Wolf in the Heat 7, and I got back from them specifically stating, hey, if you want to post a portion of what you'd written to Sofa or your FA, go ahead and do so. And I asked them, okay, well that makes sense, but what would you say I could pick out of this entire long piece that I've written that would make sense to post in a smaller form that work well as a blurb? And I never got an answer back.
Oh.
So I had no idea what to actually do.
They're very busy.
Yeah.
They're awesome guys.
I
Seriously,
know,
they're very professional, which is something that you unfortunately don't always get with small publishers.
Yeah.
But because they have so much that they're doing, they're very busy. And they have Nordgaard this year. They have Kyle Gold's new acquisition. Really, really busy.
No, I was in contact with Alex.
I mean, I can imagine if you just don't get a response, then just try again.
Yeah.
It might have gotten buried.
Keep poking Alopex or something. Just be like, hey.
Well, give them like the 2 minute
Right. Don't poke Taylor.
No, that was good 6 or 7 months ago.
Definitely poke again.
Yeah. It's really probable it just got lost. It happens.
Yeah.
And they appreciate the reminder.
I was just going to say, a friend of mine who's also published in Heat7 had quite a good approach to it, where he's written a self-contained story, but for promotional material, he's just written extra little stories, just little short ones, a couple thousand words, just exploring the characters in different situations, and before the story was set, after the story was set, and I thought it was a really interesting approach. So they all go on for affinity, whatever, and it's just a little kind of vignette that was, you're not giving away anything in the story, you're just showing the characters and get people interested in their story.
Do you know how it worked out?
Well, Heat7's just come out, and the story did seem to attract a lot of interest, so I guess we'll find out how well it's pushed it. But yeah, it did seem to get people quite excited and
It
envious.
seems like a good thing. I know that for Dog's Days of Summer, if I recall correctly, in one of the earlier volumes of the launch also had like a 6 to 8 page mini comic. Remember the Otter and the Beach Bum? That was a little prequel to the adventures that would later occur in the actual meat and potatoes of the comic itself. So yeah, it was a little vignette, a little bit of a side quest, and it's totally fun.
It's tough to see the order of events on that, because since over here in Europe we only get them every once in a while. It looked like this happened at the same time to me.
I had a question over there.
Yeah, it's sort of internet. I might get shot down for this, but I'm going to say it anyway because it's something that's been in the back of my mind.
Yeah.
Obviously, we're quite a small fandom. We all kind of know each other. It's not a massive thing, but when you're publishing your stuff on FA, particularly, has plagiarism or the potential for plagiarism ever been a problem, particularly regarding writing?
Regarding writing.
Yeah.
Writing.
Even artists.
I could kind of answer that. Well, I think both you would also probably have some experience with that. But because I've been writing off and on in the fandom for like 20 years, so there are some things that I've done which have been plagiarized. Might be too strong a word, but you can tell that someone has written a story which is very heavily influenced by something you've written. You know, like particularly like the bat species, reverse species. You know, someone had done what was very obviously their own version of it. I think because they decided mine wasn't quite kinky enough. So
actually, recently through Kyle Gold that someone was mentioning here, I listen to his podcast all the time.
yeah,
I made a comment on there that I was happy to edit for people if they wanted to send me things that they were working on, and I'd help them out, give them some advice on what they were writing. And you wouldn't believe the number of stories that I've received over the last couple of months that are about insert species here in high school or university playing football.
Oh yes,
Say a cheerleader male companion that they come out to.
If the story is popular, you know that's going to do a lot. So Kyle Gold will get a lot of that. The story, my story was called "A Gift of Fire, a Gift of Blood," like 20 years ago. And back then, like in the Neanderthal days of the fandom, it was really, really popular, and so it got a lot of that sort of attention. I think in practice, you probably don't have to worry about that much. Most of the people who are doing that aren't going to be good enough writers to get that much attention.
Yeah.
When it comes right down to it.
I got plagiarised word for word once, but it was just like, they didn't change anything, it was just an FA account, and someone said, oh, by the way, your thing's up there.
Yes,
That's plagiarism.
And they was like, yeah, banned, gone.
Yeah, that's even sort of beyond plagiarism, just out and out copyright theft.
But
Yeah.
I think that seemed quite
But that's the fear. I mean, sometimes you think that could happen, but then how would you get your work out there in the online?
Yeah, I think
taking that risk?
I think that is sort of a risk. That's obviously one for artists a lot. Like I think
Well, for artists,
about
a bit more
weekly, you're
because
going to see someone like,
Literally.
gosh, that piece looks an awful lot like a Dark Natasha piece that you've put your own name over.
Yeah. No,
I don't think you got that good this last week. You know, so
It happens, but you got to take the risk. If you don't put your stuff out there, they won't see it.
Yeah.
So you got to take the chance. I mean, yeah, sure, you're going to get some people here and there, but really, it's not that bad. It's not like you're having hundreds of thousands of people doing it. And if you look at like movies today, they're doing it all the time. They're like,
Yeah.
oh, that's a good idea. Quick, let's put this out, before them and get a title for it. And it's just like, can you guys come up with anything different or new or?
Not to play the devil's advocate here, but
Please do.
no, I mean, obviously there's such a thing as direct copyright infringement where you're stealing somebody's image or you're stealing somebody's characters. But to say this story is like my story is, nearly any writer could make that complaint. Everything that exists pretty much is referenced from other stories. You've heard the term, every story has been written at this point. It's pretty much true. And within the furry fandom, there are so many of these, like you were saying, the coming out stories, the high school stories, which obviously, I have some personal experience with. There are so many of these stories because it happens.
Oh, sure.
Yes.
I can't speak for the stories that you received, that you were editing, or any of the stuff that you guys...
At no point did I ever go to one of those authors and say, you ripped this off.
Yeah.
It was more a fact of, did you recently read Out of Position?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's true, but the fact of the matter is, this fandom has a lot of people who are in those sort of positions in their life. And they're writing about it because it pertains to them. Cruelty was very personal for me. Obviously, I am not a bisexual wolf dog male, but it was very pertinent to me and to my experiences growing up and to some of my friends' experiences growing up. And that made it very run-of-the-mill and something that you see a lot of in the furry fandom. But the fact is,
Slice of life.
people want to read that stuff. It doesn't matter if they've read it before. Unless it is a complete copy, it's a different experience every time, and it's something that we write about because it relates to us.
Every cliche started out as a good idea.
Exactly. And, I like cliches. I like tropes. I like stories that have pre-existed before. Sometimes when you try too hard to be original, your story is not relatable.